Listen Up is back looking at science's biggest experiment, the Large Hadron Collider. What was it that first launched energy into becoming matter? To help us answer that, we are joined by Dr. John Polkinghorne. Dr. John Polkinghorne is also an Anglican priest. He is a past recipient of the Templeton Prize for Science and Religion, an esteemed professor and writer. Thank you for being with us at the University of Victoria.
Thank you.
All right. Dr. Polkinghorne, can you help us understand how energy became matter?
Well, the LHC is helping us to take a further step in that direction, but it won't give us the complete story. We shall see at the LHC what was happening in the universe when it was just about a trillionth of a second old after the Big Bang. But things happen very rapidly in the very early universe, and there are many things have happened before even the universe was a trillionth old. So it'll be a further step, but it won't be a complete answer to what was going on actually immediately following the Big Bang.
How does God work when the world is governed by scientific law?
Well, I think the scientific laws that we explore and discover are themselves expressions of the Creator's will for the divine creation. And God has not brought into being a world that is simply a clockwork world, a rigid mechanism. Early science seemed to give that picture of the world, but when quantum theory came along, quantum theory is much more subtle and flexible in its character, we realized that the world is orderly, but it's not absolutely rigid. We are able to act in the world, we are able to bring about our intentions, and I believe even more so, of course, that the divine creator of the world is able to interact providentially in history. The world is not so tight that the laws of matter themselves determine absolutely everything that's going to happen.
Okay, I want to ask how you as a particle physicist came to believe in God, in the sovereignty of God over this amazing world.
Well, it was really the other way around. I grew up in a Christian home, and I can't remember when I wasn't part of the believing and worshipping community of the church. And of course, as I got older, I began to reflect on these things more fully. But I never ever felt that I had to choose between science and religion. I needed both. Science is telling me how things work in the world, and religion is telling me why things are working the way that they are. There is a meaning and purpose at work in the world. There is value in what's going on. And I need both of those forms of insight if I'm truly to understand the remarkable universe in which we live.
Okay, and the faith that you look to not only believes God is sovereign, but that God is manifest in the person of Jesus Christ. And, you know, as you are now an Anglican priest, you teach, you lead in this, that Jesus Christ is the manifest presence of God. Why are you so convinced of that?
Well, of course, that's a complicated question to resolve. Basically because I believe that God has acted in the most astonishing, mysterious and exciting way to make God's nature known as clearly as possible to us. It's hard to think about God, obviously, but God in Christ has acted to make the divine nature known in the most accessible terms by living a human life in Jesus Christ. I mean, does God care for us? You ask the question, did Jesus care for the people who crossed his path? So, if you like, Jesus is the window from humanity into the nature of God.
Can science sometimes adopt a bias based on the culture of the day?
Well, science can certainly make some bad mistakes if it thinks it can answer every question. The claim that's called scientism, to say that science tells us all that you need to know, or indeed all that you ever could know, I think that's manifestly false. Science is successful because it only asks a certain type of question about the world, essentially, how do things happen? And it definitely just brackets out, it doesn't try to discuss why things are happening. But religion, of course, is very much concerned with that. And that's why I think I need both science and religion, to the how and the why of what's happening in this very remarkable world in which we live.
All right, and at the end of the day, I know we're years and years away from the conclusions that the LHC will bring to us. What do you hope that you would be looking for at the end of the day of that experiment?
Well, we are hoping for further understanding of how the world works, how God has chosen to make the world work. But usually when you have a big new machine like this and it explores something that's not been explored before, the most interesting thing that happens, the most interesting thing one might hope for, is something you hadn't expected beforehand. Nature is very often richer and more interesting and more subtle than we could guess beforehand. So I would think that at the end of the day it is likely the most interesting discovery of the LHC will prove to be something that we are not able to even to imagine today.
Well, Reverend Dr. John Polkinghorne, thank you very much.
Thank you.
When we return, I'll share my personal thoughts on the tension between science and faith in God in The Wrap. Listen Up is all about news that takes you deeper, and we're always on the lookout for spiritual realities behind the headlines. If you'd like to suggest an idea for our show, we'd love to hear from you. Write to us at listenup@listenuptv.com. 8,000 scientists and $10 billion later, the experiment that is the LHC will prove science cannot answer all there is to Earth and man, nor can all the experience of Earth and man answer all there is to God. Bold wrestling with mystery. I like what our guest John Polkinghorne has to say. A renowned particle physicist and Anglican priest, the founder of the International Society of Science and Religion, he argues knowing God and science requires you to be truthful on two fronts. Truthful on the scientific front about what we know about the history of the earth, and truthful about what we know from personal religious experience and in the traditions in which we learn about God. God has two books, nature and the Bible. It's God who says He's left everything there for us to discover Him. I've written more on this at my blog, and you'll find great links to Dr. Polkinghorne and others at our website at listenuptv.com. Thanks for watching. For all of us here, I'm Lorna Dueck. Mark wrote to us, so where did the universe come from? Science would tell you that matter was formed shortly after the singularity became unstable. I see way too much organization for it all to have happened by chance. Tell us your thoughts on the origin of life. Visit our website at listenuptv.com.